go. Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of Awaken the Guardian. Today's topic, questions. Questions, and more questions. So, before we get started, I want you to notice something very interesting. As my wife stated, I have a sexy voice right now, like the Barry Manilow. Hello, how are you doing today? How can I help you? Sounds cool, right? But here's the truth. I have been sick as a dog the entire last week. Like the entire week, I was almost bedridden. I'd like to say bedridden, but the truth is that I cough more when I'm seated or laying down than I do when I'm standing up or walking around, which meant that I was coughing more and sick more at night. So I didn't really sleep a lot. In fact, last night, I got 1 hour of sleep in my bed, and I got about 4 hours of kind of sleep on the couch. Like literally moved out of the room because I was coughing so loud that I was shaking the bed. My poor wife thought that we had a water bed. We don't. But anyway, that's why I have the different sounding voice today. No acoustics, just the fact that my vocal cords have been strained. But I'll be honest with you, like if I could have this all the time, could you imagine? Like how cool would that be? Get on the radio. Hello, my name is Garrett Bake. Today, we're going to talk about... Just kidding. Anyway, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, questions, right? Questions. Here's the funny thing. Have you ever noticed that it doesn't matter what point you are in your life, you avoid questions? Think about this. When you were small and your parents asked you what you did, when something went right or something went wrong, what was your usual response? It was usually, oh, I'm gonna hide. I feel like I did something wrong. Because most of the time, when we start out as youngins, as babies, when our parents ask us questions, it's usually because why? It's usually because we did something wrong. And so what happens is, as children, we start to then get programmed into when our parents ask us questions, it's because we did something wrong or it's because they're looking for something. Did you hit your sister? Did you throw that bottle? Did you break that thing? Did you eat some food that you weren't supposed to? Did you? And so when you get to school then, and you come home, and I'm speaking from experience by the way, you come home and your parents ask you, how was your day at school? You immediately start thinking, well, I did something wrong, so maybe I shouldn't give them all the details of everything that happened. Like this was me. It was almost like an inquisition. Every time I got home from school, how was school? Oh, it was good. Oh, did you have any homework, right? So it started down this path of homework. Oh, crap, did I do my homework? Well, I didn't do my homework. So I tell them the truth that I didn't do it, or did I tell them that I did and then just try and do it before school tomorrow? This is the pattern that we established when we were young. But here's what happens. Do you think that pattern goes away? No, it doesn't. It doesn't go away. And it actually multiplies. It multiplies in a couple different ways. It multiplies, one, with our own children, i.e. we repeat the pattern. And two, it multiplies now in our adult life, regardless of where we work or what it is that we do. When these questions are asked, we are immediately looking for what? We're looking for an out. We're looking for a way to shift around the truth. Because why? Because we don't want to get in trouble. Like I found myself, I'm going to tell you two stories. I'm going to tell you a story about a suspect, but I'm also going to tell you a story about my kids. My oldest, I love him to pieces, and he frustrates the hell out of me. Why? Because he's just like me. Literally just like me. He gets pissed off like me. He storms off like me. He does everything like me. Even has my hairy legs. Side note. But here's the deal. I treat him like a suspect. Why? Because that's the pattern that I had established in my head when I was young. And then that's the pattern that I used as a police officer. So I would ask my son, how did your day go? And he would start off telling me how his day went, and then I would continue to ask more questions and find out that, well, the day didn't go exactly how it was supposed to. So what does my son do? Well, he starts to tell a half-truth, and then he starts to lie. And then these things start to happen, and of course, what eventually happens, the truth comes out, and so I would get pissed off and angry at him, And he would realize that it's not beneficial for him to tell me the truth. So he doesn't. Just like it wasn't beneficial for me to tell my parents the truth. So I didn't. Like, think about this. For you police officers, even those of you who are not police officers, when you interview a suspect, what's your ultimate goal? Ultimately, you want them to what? You want them to tell the truth. So you start to ask questions that start to guide them down the path of telling the truth, just like you would your kids, and just like you were conditioned when you were young. So there's multiple instances of this, but there was one particular instance where I was working undercover at the time, and I'd been purchasing drugs from this particular suspect. I think it was weed. Borderline legal, yes, I know. But this was a few years ago. So I was buying marijuana from this guy. And we'd done 4 or 5 deals. The last deal, I bought an entire pound of weed from this guy. This guy worked for Tempe Parks and Rec. Like, he was like a park ranger. But his side gig was selling weed. So whatever. So bought from him 3 or 4 times, and we end up arresting him. He gets taken to the station. Excuse me for the coughs that will intermittently interrupt this podcast. We take him to the station and into the interview room. And when we're in there, my partner begins to interview him and starts with the basic questions. What's your name? What's your address? How old are you? Have you ever been arrested before? These types of things. And it's interesting that with this first set of questions, he's very truthful and honest. Tells us, of course, everything we already know. But then we read him Miranda and we start to ask him about this particular case. And we start to ask him about selling drugs. And he immediately tightens up. Excuse me. So he immediately tightens up, and he immediately starts to backpedal, and he immediately starts to tell half-truths, and he immediately starts to try and paint an alternative reality. And they finally get to the point, this investigator, my partner, and the suspect, where it turns into a, yes, you did, no, I didn't. Listen, we'll call him Johnny. Listen, Johnny, I know that you sold a pound of drugs today to someone. No, I didn't. Johnny, we were watching you. We saw you do it. No, I didn't. And it turned into this, yes, I did, no, I didn't. Much like it is with us and our children. Different scenario, same outcomes. So they go back and forth for about 30 seconds. And finally, I get angry. Most of the time, we don't reveal ourselves as undercover detectives. We let someone else handle it and kind of go about our thing. But I was watching this interview, and I finally became so fed up that I stormed into the interview room. Door swung open. He looks at me. I look at him. And I was like, quit lying. You sold me a pound of marijuana. And I walked out and I slammed the door. And he sat there in stunned silence. The investigators sat there in stunned silence. And finally, when they got their wits back about him, he admitted that yes, he had, in fact, sold marijuana. Now listen, the point of this story is not to tell you that I got a confession on a drug case. Like, the point of this story is for you to understand the pattern that we've established in our lives when it comes to not only asking, but answering questions. And how our inability to tell the truth with these questions literally affects the outcome of our lives. Now, this wasn't anything major for him, right? He ended up going to jail, he served some time, yada yada, on this, on that. But what it showed me now, looking back, is that he was merely mimicking the same pattern that I had established when I was a kid. The same pattern that I had been taught. If it serves me, I will tell the truth. If it doesn't, I won't. How many of you can relate to this? How many of you can relate to the fact that when it's convenient for you to tell the truth, man, you sing like a bird. It comes out, you have no problem. But anytime you're confronted with something that you don't know how it's going to end up, you don't know if it's going to benefit you or not, you immediately start to tighten up, clam up, tell half-truths, and eventually lie. And the conversation can be one of many. The conversation can be one with your wife when she's asking you questions about who you're talking to on Facebook or texting. Conversation can be with your boss when it comes to how it is that you're spending your time at work. The conversation can be with yourself when it comes to how it is that you're treating your body. It's exactly the same. So we end up with this pattern. And this pattern in our lives is asking questions, but asking the wrong questions. Why? Because we don't want to deal with the truth. So instead of asking questions that will help us solve our problems or help us get what we want, this is the question, or these are the type of questions that we ask. Why is this happening to me? Why am I so fat? Why does my wife hate me? Why do my kids not want to hang out with me? Why am I not making any more money? Why has God abandoned me? And you see, it's this pattern of over and over and over again, not being able to ask the right questions because of our fear of actually knowing the truth or actually telling the truth. Listen to this. Literally, your life has been dictated by the questions that you're willing to ask yourself. I want you to consider something. I want you to consider that life is nothing but a series of powerful conversations. Like, that's it. Life is a series of powerful conversations. And these powerful conversations start with one thing. What do you think that is? That's right. Questions. Life is nothing but a series of powerful conversations that begin with questions. So, if life is nothing but a series of powerful conversations that begin with questions, why is it that we don't have the ability to ask the right questions? Well, this goes back to exactly what it was that it was like when we were children. Like, I remember that I had trouble doing my homework. How many of you can relate to this? And so it wasn't that I wasn't capable of it, because by all accounts I was a pretty smart kid. I just didn't want to do my homework. I would rather be outside playing football, playing soccer, playing basketball, playing whatever, just playing. And so instead of spending my time doing my homework, I would go out and play. And then my mother would ask, "Did you get your homework done?" And I would feel guilty for doing what I wanted to do. And so instead of my mom saying, "Listen, I like the fact that you want to play. I want to give you every opportunity to play, but there's a process to getting to that," and helping me understand that process, she would get mad. She would get angry. I would get grounded. And it would make me what? Not want to do my homework. It would make me not want to tell the truth next time because I didn't want to get grounded. So these patterns are established in our childhood. Every single one of us has the same pattern, the same inability to tell the truth. So how is it that we change this? How is it that we change this pattern? This is one of the dominating patterns in our lives. It's a subconscious pattern, but it's one of the dominating patterns. Because I want you to think of where in your life right now you're not only asking the wrong questions, but you have an inability to tell the truth. Like those same series of questions that I asked earlier. How many of you ask yourselves these same questions over and over and over again? We all do, subconsciously. But see, there's something that shifts. There's something that shifts when we're able to take something from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. That means that we take control of it. Now, if you've ever been in any type of exercise that requires heavy breathing, usually some type of sports, you're taught about the importance of breathing and controlling your breathing and how your ability to control your breathing makes you more successful. I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I was training for an Ironman. I didn't complete the training, had some other things come up. But one of the things I had to do was learn how to swim. Like, I grew up in southern Arizona, desert. Like, I didn't have a pool growing up. We had a dirty river that was like a foot deep. Like, there was no opportunity for me to swim. So I never learned how to swim. One of the things I had to learn to do was swim. I had to hire a coach. Yes, a swim coach at 40 years old, because I couldn't figure it out. And so as I'm learning the basics of swimming, what she tells me the most important thing of swimming is, what do you think? It's breathing. Because it's a subconscious thing that in order to swim effectively has to become a conscious thing. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe in. Breathe out, breathe out, breathe out, breathe in. Rhythm, 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 rhythm. So what I learned quickly was that I needed to establish a pattern. And as I was going along, this was a couple-month process, I started to establish a pattern. And it benefited me. I literally learned how to swim. It's just like this when it comes to questions in our lives and our ability to ask them consciously instead of whine about them subconsciously. See, because when we ask the why questions, are we really looking for an answer? Or are we just looking for an excuse? For so many years of my life, when things weren't working the way I wanted them to, I simply asked why questions. Why is this not working for me? Why is this not happening? Why does my wife hate me? Why does she not want to make love to me? Why do my kids, when I show up at home, why do they run and hide instead of coming to give me a hug? Why does my body not look the way I want it to? Why am I not making more money? Why do I feel like God abandoned me? Like, I would ask myself these questions and more over and over and over again until something changed. My ability to have the powerful conversations, my ability to ask those powerful questions. Now, there's a couple of powerful questions that I want to introduce you to. I hope you're sitting down, because these will change your life. Here's the thing, though. They're not complicated questions, but they're questions that are conscious questions. They make you think. And if asked properly and answered in the truth, will shift the way that you live your life. Ready? Here we go. Question number 1. What do you want? The men that I coach right now are powerful businessmen. They're powerful police officers. They're just powerful men in general. And one of these men, as I'm guiding him through these 2 questions earlier this week, is looking at making an additional $300,000. For some of you, that's a lot. For some of you, it's not. Regardless, it's a number. But he was unclear on these 2 questions. The first one being, what do I want? Why is this one question so important? Why is it so important for us to know exactly what it is that we want? I invite you to consider that you're never going to do anything that you don't want. You're never going to put forth the effort in your life to get something that you don't want. That's the way it is. Think about it. If you work for somebody else, or if you're in a position where you're trying to fulfill a contract or something for somebody else, and it's not really something that you want, what is your effort? Seriously, what is your effort level when it comes to this? It's probably pretty low. In fact, I'll guarantee it's low. How do I know? Because I was the same. Every time I couldn't combine what I wanted with what I was doing, there was never a huge effort involved. So ask yourself this question. Where in your life are you currently unclear on what it is that you want? Like literally, I don't know what I want. I don't know what it is that I want with my relationship. I don't know what it is that I want with my body. I don't know what it is that I want with God. I don't know what it is when it comes to making and keeping money. I don't know. You scroll through Instagram, you scroll through Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter and everything else, and what do you see? You see the fake happiness. You see the fake fulfillment, the fake purpose, and you think, oh, that's what I want. That's what I want right there. I want a Lamborghini. Enough with the Lamborghinis already. Really? Do you really want a Lamborghini? Seriously? Like, no, that's not what you want. That's what social media will tell you that you want, but it's not what you want. But because you're trying to live out somebody else's fantasy, this is what you think that you want. And realizing that you're never going to get it because you don't truly want it, you just kind of wallow through life, going through the motions. But if you're willing to ask yourself legitimately, what do I want? Things are going to start to shift. Like seriously, tell yourself the truth. What do you want when it comes to your body? Do you really want six-pack abs and a chiseled chest? Seriously, do you really want that? Like I remember growing up, I would go to the store and I would look at those like muscle mags, like you know which ones I'm talking about. The big bodybuilder dudes, and they're like, you know, just muscles beyond muscles on top of muscles. And I'd be like, wow, I really want to look like that. That's what I really want, right? They're all oiled up and the lighting and everything. And I'm like, wow, that's what I want. And so when I first started working out, guess what? That's what I would try and strive for. But it really wasn't what I wanted, so I never really put forth the full effort to get it. Same thing when it came to my marriage, right? I got married. There's no manual. They're like, here, congratulations. Here's a ring. There's a ring. Off you go. I'm like, whoa, well, let's see. And I struggled because I didn't really know what I wanted. So what did I do? I would look at TV and social media and everything else. And I'd be like, oh, well, it looks like they know what's going on. So maybe that's what I want. Somebody else's relationship. And when my relationship wasn't that way, what? I would get pissed off and frustrated. And whatever little effort I was putting into it, I would quit. Like this pattern repeats itself in your life. If you're unclear of what it is that you want, you'll never be able to get it. That's simple. So if you want to start to get what you want in life, if you want to start succeeding, if you want to start feeling that you're doing things on purpose, that you're filling your life with passion, that you're fueled by happiness and fire, cool. What do you want? Here's the second and equally powerful question. After asking yourself what it is that you want, you ask yourself why. Why is it that I want it? See, I've been involved with companies before. You can call them network marketing, multi-level marketing, whatever you want to call them. Yep, I was involved in a couple of those. And yep, I failed miserably. Because we would start off with a dream board or a vision board, and many of you have done this before. And you'd put this castle on the hills, and you'd put the Ferrari, the Lamborghini, and you put the private jet and the vacations, and you put all this stuff on a piece of paper, which is answering supposedly the question, what do I want? But you would never follow it up with the second question. Why? Why do I want it? Why do I want the house that's 10,000 square feet? Why do I want the Lamborghini? Why do I want the vacations around the world? Why do I want $10 million in cash? Why? See, all those other why questions that we talked about earlier will never get you what you want. This one is the only one that will. So after answering the questions, what do you want? Then ask yourself, why do I want it? Because this is the gut check. This is the truth check. If you don't know what you want, or you're unclear, or you're untruthful about what it is exactly that you want, and you ask yourself the follow-up question, why do I want it? guess what's going to happen? You're going to become like the little 10-year-old who was confronted by mom because he didn't do his homework again. You're going to start to squirm. You're going to start to squeam. You're going to start to feel like you're going to get in trouble. And you're going to start to lie to yourself. But because you're doing this consciously instead of subconsciously, you'll immediately see that that is what you're doing. Listen, when I wanted all the muscles, like in the muscle mags, the dudes with like Arnold Schwarzenegger size and like super huge, I didn't know why I wanted it. Literally didn't know. Started police work. What kind of body do you want? I don't know, a six-pack and some other stuff. I guess, like, that's cool. But that wasn't really what I wanted. I wasn't willing to ask myself that question. See, eventually, though, what happened is I figured out what it was that I wanted physically. I wanted to have a strong body that would be able to put up with the rigors of police work. Okay. Why? Because I didn't want to get in a situation where I had to fight somebody and I didn't have the strength or the stamina to be able to withhold it. I didn't want to get to a situation where 20 to 25 years into my job, I had hip and back problems because I was slouched over or the equipment wasn't set up properly or I didn't have the strength in my hips and my legs to be able to carry all that weight. I didn't want to get in that situation. So then I set out on a workout plan that allowed me to strengthen my core area, that allowed me to still have strength and stamina to be able to do the job properly. So what did I want and why did I want it? And guess what happened? All of a sudden my body started to change. All of a sudden the back and the hip problems that I had went away. All of a sudden I didn't get gassed running 100 yards chasing a suspect. Like all of these things happened simply because I was clear on what? I was clear on what I wanted and why I wanted it. See, the same thing can happen to you if you're willing to ask these two questions. It works, guess what? With your body. It works with your relationship with God. It works with your relationship with your spouse and your kids. It works with your ability to make and keep money. See, a lot of you right now are in a job. You don't even know why you're there. You were literally just getting a paycheck over and over and over again. There's no purpose in what you do. So ask yourself these two questions. What is it that I want? And why is it that I want it? I'll tell you from experience. When I was not only willing to ask myself these two questions, but truthfully answer them, everything started to shift. See, a lot of people ask me, they're like, okay, so you were a cop for 15 years, you could have retired at 20 with a full pension, full health benefits, and you retired at 15. So you left all that stuff on the table. Guaranteed $50,000 a year for the rest of your life. Guaranteed low-cost health insurance. Over $50,000 worth of sick and vacation time. Like, you left it all on the table. Why? That's a big question right there, right? Why? Do you want to know the answer why? Because I fulfilled my purpose as a police officer. After 15 years, I'd done everything that I wanted to do. I'd served all the people I wanted to serve. I found clarity in my life. And I realized that what I wanted at that point was to take all the things that I had learned and teach them and share them with other police officers and teach them and share them with other men and teach them and share them with business owners and CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs. Every man that was willing to listen, I was going to share those with them. That's why this podcast started. That's why the events that I run started. That's why all these things started, was simply because I was clear on what it was that I wanted and why it was that I wanted it. See, I was clear on one thing. The world was not going to change based on me changing. The world was going to change based on me providing the opportunity for other people to change. Same way that I was given the opportunity, I now give it to others. So there you have it. Why is it that I do what I do? But here's a question back to you. Why is it that you do what you do? But I also have another invitation. I get it if sometimes it feels like life's not working. I get it if you don't feel like you're quote unquote free. I get it when you don't have the clarity that you want out of life. I get it. This was me. And until I was confronted and had to search for the answers, I wasn't ever going to find them. So here's an invitation for you. Let me drink some more water before I cough again. I don't think I've ever done a podcast coughing like this. But here's the invitation for you. If you would like help getting clear on what it is that you want and why it is that you want it, if you would like help getting what you want out of life, I invite you to reach out. Here's the funny thing. Like this podcast in the last month has about 8,000 downloads. 8,000. So that's 8,000 of you who've listened to the podcast in some way, shape, or form. The problem is there's not 8,000 people who are actually interested in changing their life. I take that back. There's 8,000 people who might be interested in changing their life, but there's not 8,000 people who are committed. See, the program that I run is not an interested program. It's a committed program. Because it's hard. Because it costs money. Because it will take you places that you have never wanted to go. It will take you into the dark. You'll feel uncomfortable. You'll feel scared. You'll cry. You'll want to quit. But I can guarantee you that on the other end is the life that you truly desire. Why? Why can I say this? Why can I guarantee this? Because this is the exact same process that I went through to get what it is that I have today. See, my life is an open book. And you all know, if you've listened to this podcast long enough, if you haven't, go back and listen to the first episode where I tell you my entire story. And I'll continue to share stories with me. Places where I've screwed up. Places where I've taken a left instead of a right. How I almost threw it all away. But I can also tell you how today I have a marriage that's on fire. I can tell you that today I'm making more money than I ever have in my entire life. I can tell you that today my body feels better than it has in years. And I can also tell you that I'm connected with my purpose, which is why I'm able to get up at 4 o'clock or earlier every morning. Because 4 o'clock doesn't mean anything. It just means it's a new day and there's new people that I get to reach out and touch. There's new people that I get to help transform their lives. So if this sounds like you, reach out. Gerritt, Gerritt @warriorguardian.com. Hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up on Instagram. Not on Snapchat. Don't really follow Twitter. If you're really interested, quit making excuses, and it's time to go to work. I got an event coming up soon. It's limited to 10 men. Will I have something for women soon? Yes. Why? Because there's been an interest. That's it. But I don't care if you're a man or woman. I don't care if you're rich or you're poor. If this is something that you're committed to, reach out and let's have a conversation. But even if you don't, take these 2 questions and use them to get what you want out of life. What is it that I want? And why? Why is it that I want it? All right, that is it for today. As always, my brothers and sisters, I wish you nothing but the best. So stay safe. And remember, there's always someone out there that's got your 6.